You all know we live in the midst of a world, in the midst of a nation where there is great racial tension and there is great ethnic strife. We just know even in the past few weeks from the George Floyd trial, there has been just great controversy when it comes to race and issues of equality and issues of justice. We live in a country that has been entrenched throughout our history with a history of slavery that lasted 240 years and unjust and unequal laws, Jim Crow laws that lasted another 90 years. And for the past 60 years, there has been legislation and laws that have been trying to be brought about to bring about equality and justice for all of the citizens of our nation. And it seems like no matter what is done, whether it's governmental policies, whether it's economic reform, whether it's educational reform, whether it's teaching theories or philosophies on race, or whether it's diversity training, it just seems like we keep running into this same old thing over and over again. It seems like we get better and it seems that we're past our race problems, but then all of a sudden it seems like it pops up all over again. Because the problems that we're dealing with when it comes to race, when it comes to ethnicity, they're not social problems. At the very basis of them, they are sin problems. They are problems that come from the human heart that only God, by the gospel, can transform and only God can change. It's the answer for the things that we're facing won't come through any of the things that people are looking to. The answer to what we're dealing with can only come through one entity, one organization, one organism that's living and alive, and it's the Church of Jesus Christ, because we have the only message that brings peace, and we have the only message that brings unity, and we have the only message in which there is true and real love that flows from the heart of God. The gospel is the answer. But yet we live in a world where more and more the church is not even talked about when it comes to discussions of race or ethnicity. The church isn't talked about. Why is that? Because even though we, the people of God, we have this identity in Christ, we're not living it out. And we look so polarized when it comes to race, when it comes to political preferences, when it comes to all these things. We look as polarized as the world looks. And yet we have this message of reconciliation, but the world doesn't see it in us. We talk to them about a God who is holy, who sent his son to die so that sinful men and women can be reconciled to a holy God. And he's done away with the hostility, but they still see us living as if we're separate and living as if we're divided. And so the church, we've lost our voice in the midst of the culture because we're not living out the reality of who we are. When it comes to these issues of race, we end up taking sides. We take sides whether we're white or we're black, and then we take sides based on that. But we need to realize that we have already taken a side, and it's the side of Christ. And Christ has called us to step into these situations and spaces and to minister to all that are involved. Black communities that are hurting, whites that are dealing with different things. We're to step in, not taking sides, but taking Christ's side and being willing to let him use us to minister his gospel, his hope, his healing, his love, his blessing to those around us. I had a friend who I sat down with recently, and a white friend of mine, and he said, David, it breaks my heart when I look at the things that are happening in the world. And David, how do these things make you feel? And I say, yeah, it breaks my heart when I see these things over and over again. But I said to him, you know what? I'm not shocked by it. I'm not shocked when there's hostility in the world. I'm not shocked by the fact that there's injustice in the world. I'm not shocked by the fact that there's racism in the world. But what shocks me and what grieves my heart is when we, the church, don't look any different than the world. When we, the ones who are called to be the light of the world, living out in darkness, we should be shining in this hour. They should be looking and saying, how in the world can you all love each other with everything that's going on? But yet they don't say that. There's words that Martin Luther King said back in 1963 and 1968 that are still true today. The most segregated hour in America, he said, was 11 o'clock, but still the most segregated hour in America is whenever the church is meeting on Sunday, Saturday, or whatever day we're meeting. And we don't seem to have the answer for what's ailing our world. We just present the gospel as it's something that has brought me and God back into a relationship with one another, instead of seeing that the gospel has done something so much greater. I would attest that as a church, we really have forgotten what our identity is. We're not living out our identity in this world, and so we're not having the impact in this world that Christ would want us to have in the hour in which we've lived, because we've forgotten our identity, or we're failing to live it out if we know it.